Hey everyone, welcome back to my Autism My Voice. In the previous episode, you got to watch pre-K and kindergarten in regards to my experience with autism in that stage of my schooling. And for this video, we're going to be focusing on elementary, specifically grade 1 through 6. For my experience, it was an interesting time because this was when I really got the first glance into both public school and private school. Uh, was in public school first through fourth grade. Went through three different schools. I was in the special ed setting. I was mainstream for math and was in a special ed for different disabilities ranging from ADD, ADHD, autism, some physical disabilities, dyslexia, also, and just uh, basically a wide range of disabilities. And um, it was a very interesting experience to say the least because I got a glance of two different things. I got a glance of being mainstreamed and being one of the only mainstream kids um, in third and fourth grade was very difficult because I just there were a lot of questions from the other kids. There were a lot of questions in regards to why, for some reason, was I the only one in the class half the day and then not in the class the other half of the day. It led to a lot of questions and at the time I wasn't really sure about my disability. I knew I was in special ed setting from a very early age, but I never knew about what autism really meant, what autism meant to me. I wouldn't know about autism until very much later. It was definitely tough because I was dying for structure, and unfortunately, being in two different areas doesn't really help with the whole social interaction thing. Being with two different groups of people during two different periods of the day made it tough. But I was always really good at math, and um, they wanted to mainstream me in that. And like I mentioned in the previous video, it was still very early on for special education. There's a lot more known now in special education and more specifically in autism now. And I think I could say, honestly, going through that experience was definitely challenging, but I think I enjoyed understanding both sides of the spectrums looking back now. Maybe not at the time, but being able to be mainstream but also be in a special ed setting really gave me a glance at both worlds. Obviously, I had aides there for me in regards to therapies and being able to focus more one on one, which really helped me. Um, but I think it was definitely an interesting experience. Also, at the same time, one of the harder challenges was going to three different schools in the first 4 years of grade school. Our I actually had a special ed class. I moved from one school to another, and definitely a very interesting experience. Not sure where I was going to go next because special ed was just very new, and still not many people really understood what autism was, and it was hard. It was definitely challenging. I think school, however, at that early age with the therapies put in place, I definitely saw progression. I knew I was doing more therapies and more services than the other kids and the other students, but I also saw that I was developing a lot, and I was also getting good grades at the time. I was an A/B student, and that really helped me help with my confidence, and it also helped, I think, in regards to some of my earlier aggression issues. I always had difficulties in motor deficiencies and sensory integration, and a few other things, and it was definitely a lot more challenging than it was now. But I think from being able to have a reward system put in place early on was definitely something that helped me a lot. I think if I can recommend anything, having a reward system put in place was super effective to my early development because I one thing I lacked when I was a kid was motivation. A lot of kids lack motivation early on, And I think having something to strive for, really helped. Because I mean, regardless if you have a disability or not, having something that can motivate you can really help you, especially when you're going through the motions, especially when you're younger. So I think that helped a lot. And then in fifth and sixth grade, I actually made the big leap from public school to private school, and that was very different. Public school, I was in a school with thousands of kids. In the three schools I attended, I was in thousands of kids in the schools. And then in fifth grade, I went to a school in Teaneck, New Jersey called Community Lower School, which had only 162 kids with all with learning disabilities. And from this experience, I I definitely had a lot more services put in place. Speech therapy became a daily class routine for me, which was really great. And I think overall it was more comforting a place because each student, even though it wasn't necessarily said or really anyone ever mentioned it, everyone was on the same playing ground. Everyone knew that there was that it was a school for individuals with learning disabilities, that everyone was on the same playing ground, and there wasn't really that much discrimination. There wasn't that many things that kids would say. There weren't that many mean things kids would say. Everyone knew they were in the same boat, and it was a very warming and comfortable environment. I think it was one of the better decisions that my parents made in my life, along with myself, because ultimately I had a say in the decision too. Um, Also, having a smaller student to teacher ratio was huge. I think the the reward system was one of the big things growing up, but also just having student teacher ratios. I think it was 8 to 1 was the student teacher ratio, which was great. A lot of hands on learning, and it helped me progress a lot too. And the reward systems were there in that school as well. So I think that overall my elementary school experience was pretty interesting. I think it was where I learned the most about my behavior, learning how to incorporate um, motivating myself, being able to have reward systems put into place, having uh, really focused on my therapies also really helped me progress a lot. And even though I still had a few difficulties academically, uh, my behavior was beginning to change rapidly. I wasn't always the angry kid in the classes anymore. I was the kid who was able to understand more. My blind side definitely went down a little bit. And what I mean from blind side is the perspective. Um, in the autism community, there's an aspect called the blind side where there are different. Sometimes you're not able to understand the perspective of someone else and their point of view on things. And I think that once I was getting a little bit older and once I was able to understand things a little bit more, it really helped with that part of it, which I think ultimately made my rest of my schooling very easy because then in middle school and high school, I went through the same program. The community lower school in Teaneck was connected to a community high school. So after elementary school, middle school, and the community lower school, I was able to go to community high school, which was the same program. Most of the kids from the lower school went to the high school, which helped me progress a lot. And having that structure, because I think structure was huge for me. And having the same people there helped me a lot with my socialization skills. So elementary school, definitely an interesting experience. And something and probably one of the most interesting stages of my life, to say the least. So, hope you guys like this video, and next video will be focused on middle school, so stay tuned.